I just want to do a little quick one today about Russell Brand and his reaction to the recent Alex Jones case. So Alex Jones, for anybody who don't know, is kind of, I guess, shock jock in the States, and he has for some years been claiming that the Sandy Hook massacre didn't happen, it was a hoax, and the parents were paid actors and all sorts of stuff. Right. Recently, some of the parents have finally sort of been able to take him to court. It's quite dramatic. He had to finally admit that he was lying about it. And so, in the wake of this verdict, Russell's done a video where he's talking about this guy as if he is some kind of alternative. He provided some kind of alternative narrative, and he asked why did he rise to prominence, and he's saying that he essentially he did because he provides an alternative narrative that the mainstream isn't even giving us. There's a lot of I find this a really problematic assertion to make at this time, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that. After I'm going to play you a little clip, just over a minute or so. I hope I've been fair to him, and then I'm going to sum up why I think that his summarization of this is problematic. So just bear with me. Here we go.
I know people that went down to Sandy Hook to do relief work, offering sort of mental support to grieving parents and various forms of spiritual support. So I suppose I should reiterate at this point that saying that Sandy Hook was a hoax and causing additional distress to such distressed people does warrant a kind of recompense of this scale. I'm certainly not seeking to undermine that verdict or in any way support Alex Jones in saying those things.
For years, Jones told followers Sandy Hook was a hoax staged by the government to crack down on guns. Jones finally admitting on the stand what the world knew years ago about the massacre.
It was, especially since I met the parents, and it's 100% real.
What's interesting to me about this story is not Alex Jones saying things that are unacceptable to grieving parents. I think all of us probably have the same opinion about that. What's interesting to me is that Alex Jones operates in a space that isn't covered by anybody else, and not just because there's nothing to cover there. These days, increasingly, you see people called conspiracy theorists, like me, for example, because I'm saying the government and big business and the media cooperate in order to tell stories that nullify democratic process and prevent ordinary people from having meaning and agency in their own lives. That's a conspiracy theory to say.
All right. So I'm just going to stop him there. He looks kind of aggressive, actually. So the first stuff I want to say that I've got a lot of time for Russell. I think he's quite funny, and I think he's got a take that if you step back and look at it, I think there's a lot of things that he does say that are spot on. So I would say that it's absolutely true that the media and the political class are essentially all in the same camp with very rich people and large corporations to a massive degree. Right, most of the media is owned by individual rich people, and who in turn have lots of stake in corporations. Most of the politicians come from an elite class. They're very, very rich. Even the ones who like to pretend that they're outside of the establishment, like your Farages and your Trumps, they absolutely are part of the establishment. It's just that their USP, their brand says, well, I'm different to these guys. It's just them trying to gain a bit of a market share, right? So yeah, they're if you want to talk about that as a kind of an establishment and say that group, they act in particular ways that are beneficial to everyone else in that group. That's absolutely true. Do they collude with each other? Well, from time to time. But if you go on to say something like the pandemic was a hoax, right? It's not that it's a hoax. If you're going to say that, well, it was a hoax because all these people benefited, that's not how it works. They all have the same motivation, right? It's it's not a conspiracy when there's a traffic jam on a bank holiday weekend. There is no conspiracy to cause a traffic jam. It's just that everybody wants to get away on a bank holiday weekend, right? There is such a thing as crisis capitalism. So there are things that you would do in times of crisis which are more extreme. They may be things that you've wanted to do for a long time, and then you wait for a period of instability outside of the status quo. So, for example, the September 11th, the legislation that came in after that, the terror laws and so on, the same thing happened here with 7/7. That's legislation that would have been drafted and written, long time before. Can't get it through in normal time. There's a crisis, so then you take advantage. Same thing as in a recession. In a recession, large companies and very rich people, they get richer as there's a lack of money around money. The cost of money goes up, and hence they do very well out of it. Thank you very much. Right. So, firstly, I don't think that is a conspiracy in the way that a lot of people understand conspiracy. And secondly, and I think more importantly, let's be really, really real about what this man did. Right? I live in a big city. I live in London, and unfortunately, children get murdered here at a rate I think is absolutely alarming. And I unfortunately know multiple people who've had a child murdered. Right? I know that you never ever get over that. It's horrific. It's the worst thing that could ever possibly happen to you. So for someone to be then using his position in the media and using his influence and using his power to convince other people that didn't happen to you, I don't think a fine is warranted. I think prison is warranted. I can't believe that he is walking the streets. And even in that clip, he's not really admitting what he's done, because he did this knowingly, willingly. He will have known all along that he was lying all the way through this. So he wasn't delusional. I mean, even in his answer, you hear him say, especially since I've met the parents, as if there was something that he didn't know before. Even then, he's still trying to diminish what he's actually done, right? So I don't think this is the moment for you to say, well, yeah, but, actually he exists in this out in the ether somewhere, and there's a kernel of truth in the things that he's saying. If you go down the comments in this video that I'm referencing now, there are people, I've read them, there are people saying, there's certainly more to Sandy Hook than meets the eye. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? When you start trading in this is who you attract people that believe these things, right? And it's also, I don't know a lot about Alex Jones, but to me it's quite obvious that he is absolutely acting in the interests of large corporations. The gun lobby, for example, gun manufacturing is huge business in America, and he clearly is in the employ of the gun manufacturer, the gun industry, in one way or another. That's as mainstream as it gets. So I do think that this is tone deaf. Frankly, I know Russell's sort of saying, yeah, I get it, but it just feels like a bit of a brush off to something that's absolutely incredibly serious. It just sounds a bit like you're saying, oh, they only went after Harold Shipman for all their murders because he said they were going to privatise the NHS. Like, it sounds ludicrous when the person has done something so reprehensible and is, by comparison, getting a slap on the wrist. Yeah, okay, he's got to pay 50 million. He's making millions and millions and millions. He doesn't have to stop making money. He's got money, and he's been fined some money. He hasn't had his liberty taken away. He isn't having to go to prison. He isn't bankrupt. So really, what is the huge imposition? And people in the comments, again, in this video, have mentioned, well, are they going to force people who've told lies about Iraq and this and that? Yeah, I get all of that. But that doesn't mean that it was wrong in this case. And even a broken clock's right twice a day. And if we want to really inject some fairness into the world, we need to recognise the reality of these situations and what these people have been through. It wasn't the government that came after this man, it was the individual parents. They'd had to take a civil action against this man, and it's worth really remembering that. So like I say, I've got a lot of time for Russ. I like him. So, you know, this is not like an attack really. This is a warning. Be careful of the company you keep. That's all I'll say. All right, thanks guys.